Hi, I'm Andrew Seal, CEO of Togethr, and welcome to the first in our new 15-minute masterclass series on employee advocacy. Designed to be bite-sized because we know you're busy. So today I'm talking about the 10 stages of employee influence. Now, in the 10 years I've been helping brands launch employee advocacy programs, I've noticed one challenge come up again and again: how to motivate employees to share with the consistency and quality required to make an impact. Now, you're likely here because you're already running an employee advocacy program, or perhaps you're thinking about launching one soon. So you're probably sold on the benefits of employee advocacy, assuming it's done well. But how do you solve the motivation problem? Now, when I started on LinkedIn, I really struggled to get moving. One day, I would manage to write an inspiring post which seemed to capture the mood and generate loads of engagement. It felt fantastic. So then I did another post, which I thought was pretty good, but this time, nothing. Tumbleweed. So feeling a little bit less motivated, I'd post again. This time, maybe a little bit better. It was kind of working, but not really. Was I doing the right thing? I don't know. Was this going to be successful if I kept doing this? I have no idea. It was really frustrating. As you might imagine, my posting soon dropped off. Now, this, I believe, is the LinkedIn experience for many, many people on employee advocacy programs. It's a jump into the dark with no idea where you're going, or in fact, if you're even moving forward. Now, it's a long game, and it's incredibly difficult in the early days to know if you're doing the right thing. So for me, week after week of not being sure if I was making any progress, wandering around in the dark, what I really wished I had was somebody there alongside me, guiding me. But that's not the experience most people get. When they're on an employee advocacy program. Instead, the most common approach to launching an employee advocacy programs looks probably something along, like this. There'll be an employee advocacy platform which is used to provide a mass of approved brand content for employees to share. Now, the issue here is that employees often just become like robots, mindlessly reposting brand content without anything of them in it. And for the employees, there is very little personal, very little gain for them. So ultimately, it's very hard to keep it going. Or employees are invited to an onboarding workshop to teach them best practice on LinkedIn. And to be honest, these can be really good. You can get great tips and advice in these things. But after that, they are usually left to it. And what happens is the further they are away from the workshop, the more this knowledge begins to fade. And when they need help, when they have a question, unfortunately, there's nobody there to answer it. Or perhaps people are provided with social media guidelines. Obviously these are important, but all too often they tell employees what they can't do rather than what they can. Or finally, perhaps they are left alone on LinkedIn to make their own way. To make sense of the endless mass of expert tips that are fired at you continuously by LinkedIn gurus sharing the latest way to do this or to do that. It can be a minefield just to try and keep up with it and work out what's right and what's not. So the problem with these methods is they're ultimately just too complicated or too slow or too easy to forget, or perhaps the first step is just too big, or they're just not relevant to you, and they certainly don't provide any feedback. I lost my picture then. It becomes very difficult to see if you're making any progress, and you start to lose interest, and eventually, like I began to do, you stop sharing, and the whole thing fades off. But it's really important to feel like you're making progress, because for us, we really believe that motivation comes from feeling a sense of progress, of getting enough wins every week so you feel it's worthwhile to keep going, even if you can't see immediate results. But when you start looking at the idea of helping employees feel like they're making progress, one big question comes up: progress to where? You need to have a destination. An interesting thing about employee advocacy is beyond sharing brand content to get engagement, I'm not sure many program managers are really clear on what they're asking employees to do or what success for them would actually look like. Too many programs set off without a clear idea of where they're going. The common response is to lean back on the advocacy platform and assume that, if the overall results of the program are going up, if the data it's showing is good, it's a successful program, job done. But because your focus is on that rather than the individual employees, you'll find that you're having to continually add new people as others drift off and stop sharing. It's just not sustainable in the long term. So, what we developed was the Togethr Employee Influence Scale to give advocates and managers visibility over possible destinations. It's a bit bigger for you so you can see. It sets out the 10 stages of employee influence from level 1, intentional listening, to level 10, where you could become a category leader. This is where you could ultimately go if you continue down this path and really put your mind to it. But we get that only a few will want to do that. But by looking at the scale, we can immediately see where employees might want to get to in terms of skill levels. So let's break it down. The first three levels are about becoming a competent brand ambassador. Employer brand ambassadors on social media are at the heart of your employee advocacy program. They are keen to support the brand, but not necessarily motivated to go beyond that. But it's important to ensure they have the core skills to deliver a great job. So level 1 is right back at intentional listening. Most people are already on LinkedIn, lurking, reading. So at this level, it's ensuring that you've learnt the skills to develop the right mindset to kickstart a high-value LinkedIn habit, and that you're able to get the maximum value from your listening and engaging that you do with your feed. Level 2 is about curating brand and industry content. At this level, you have already started to ensure you really know your brand and the industry you work in, and are able to start curating content, reposting that content, but while making it authentic and personal to you. So you're not simply just mindlessly reposting it, but you're adding something of you and your role and your expertise to that. And then level 3 is where you're learning to easily write the most common types of posts. So you're really building clarity on what your expertise is and what you know and where you can add value. And then you understand how you can write the most common types of posts, because there's a certain number of posts which are, the most common that employees could share or would share. But because the motivation levels aren't necessarily super high at this level, making it as easy as possible really, really helps. And while you're doing this, you're starting to develop your network to increase engagement around these posts. The next three levels are about building a personal brand and starting to actively create your own content. By establishing a strong presence on social media in their own right, employees are in a much better position to promote the brand. So level 4 is about getting clarity on your niche. And here you get to know your niche, what you specifically want to write about, but then also how that aligns with the brand. And once you've got this, you learn how to be able to rapidly generate ideas for posts and then write simple posts based on these ideas. Level 5 is storytelling. It's taking it up a level. Here you are learning the different storytelling approaches to bring your niche to life in an even more engaging way, and understand how to maximize engagement when you post these stories, including using new formats such as video and carousels. And then level 6 is what we call networking with purpose. Here you are really becoming effective at building your audience and offering more value to them. and you're learning the skills to convert your activity, the posting that you're making, into meaningful results. Beyond that, you're moving to become a thought leader, and this requires more dedicated time with serious ambition to do this. A thought leader is someone who leads thinking, is not simply someone who has a high profile with lots of followers, and it's certainly not something for everybody. But if it's done well, it can really establish that person and the organization as highly influential in the market. So, level 7 is about finding your unique positioning. So, at this level, you'll have identified how your niche stands out and its USPs against likely competitors in the LinkedIn space. Level 8 is about, really now offering original and unique insights. So here you're able to offer new, original viewpoints within your niche to the audience. And you're likely to be invited to be interviewed on other podcasts, for example. You're really starting to get your name out there as an expert and thought leader in this area. Level 9 is what we're calling thought leader. Here you've really established your offering and an audience using new content formats. Perhaps you have podcasts or a podcast or LinkedIn live events. So you're really building an audience around those formats, and you're likely to be regularly invited to speak at conferences as well, again, and other podcasts and so on. And finally, level 10 is category leader. At level 10, you're one of a very small number of lead voices in your category, if not the lead voice, depending on the category you've chosen. And you're very likely to have published, a book or perhaps produced very impactful reports in your role at work. So with these 10 stages, you can immediately see what success might look like in terms of the skills employees can master. And you are able to make decisions on what different groups of employees might want to achieve. And this is where it can really, really become helpful. So let's take a look at this. For example, so if you want some of your leadership team to become thought leaders, you could see that what you need to be doing is helping them develop the skills to get to, level 7 or 8. If, when it comes to the sales team or subject matter experts across the business, or perhaps the talent acquisition teams, employer branding teams, they would really benefit from achieving strong personal brands. This would really help them put them in a strong position to support the brand and communicate their expertise. But then with wider employees, if you enable them to develop the skills to be brand ambassadors, up to levels 3 here, this can be of really high value, helping them develop these core skills to communicate on social media effectively. I mean, we found in our experience when companies have even as few as 20 individuals who have all reached to level 3, who are curating content and commenting on a regular basis, the company starts getting noticed. People out there start reporting they've seen a change in the company on LinkedIn. So now you might have expected our 10 stages of employee influence to set out the level of influence an employee might be achieving at each stage, perhaps in terms of the number of followers or the levels of engagement they're getting on their posts. But we believe this is the wrong way to look at it. Having large numbers of followers or even large numbers of people engaging with posts isn't necessarily an indication of influence. What's required to influence an audience varies wildly from role to role and what's required in a particular industry or business. If we approach it that way, we'd find it very difficult to set a destination for each employee. Because the thing that will actually achieve any influence is by doing these actions. If an employee begins to master the right skills to post and comment regularly and see themselves making progress towards one of these stages, one of these clear destinations, they will start to increase their influence. Whereas if they don't post regularly and they don't comment regularly, if they don't learn the right skills, they don't make consistent progress, they will never increase their influence. So finally, to move forward using this, you need to identify and segment your employees into groups based on their needs, the objectives of their roles, and their levels of interest and motivation around becoming advocates. Then you can use our employee influence scale to make choices on the destinations you want for each group and each individual if appropriate. If you watch out on LinkedIn tomorrow, we're announcing the next episode in our 15-minute masterclass series, where we're going to be covering how to segment your employees and who is best to bring on board first. So that's going to be the same time next week. So hope to see you at that one. In the meantime, we've created a free guide to the Togethr Employee Influence Scale, which sets out what we've discussed today in more detail and shows you how you can use it as a tool to create an employee advocacy roadmap. So if you could comment on this post or DM me with the word guide, and I'll send you a copy of that this week, no problem. So that's it for today. Thank you all for listening and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.